Giving honor to God, the head and the Lord over my life. I just thank him for this opportunity to come before you and bring this word. And just to Pastor, I'm going to tell the story the right way. I text Pastor to congratulate him on his word he had given on a Sunday. And he came back and said thank you and said, you know, the Lord said that you could preach. And you know how Obama dropped the mic? I dropped the phone. I was like, he didn't tell me that. So I said, okay, God, you know, let's talk about this. Is this what you want me to do? And, you know, a little while later, he said, you have something to say. Now, that was over a year ago. And so I thought back then I knew what I was going to say. And as time went on, you know, things kind of happened. You're like, okay, this is it. I got it. Even up until, I think it was 3 weeks ago when I said, when the load gets heavy, I thought I knew what he wanted me to say. Well, yesterday morning, he woke me up. And he said, it's a call to service. So as we look at the text, we will see that God was calling his people to come out of their comfort zones. Okay? Let's not get stuck where we are. God called Jethro to speak to Moses about his way of doing things. Sometimes it takes the eyes of an outsider to look inside and see what is needed. In verse 14, we see that Jethro said, it says that when his father-in-law saw all that Moses was doing, all the people, he said, what is this you are doing for the people? Why do you alone sit as judge, while all these people stand around you from morning till evening? God called Moses to stop doing business as usual, to lighten the load and use some of the resources in front of him, to free himself up to be used for bigger things. You know, we get so comfortable that we don't understand that, you know, if you just let this go, God has something else for you. So Moses listened to his father-in-law and did everything he said. He chose capable men from all Israel and made them leaders of people, officials over thousands, hundreds, fifties, and tens. They served as judges for the people at all times. The difficult cases they brought to Moses, but the simple ones they decided themselves. God calls some of these grumbling Israelites to stop being a part of the problem and to be a part of the solution. Isn't it just like God calling us to serve when the last thing we want to do is sit? Or calling us out of our comfort zones for a new way of service, even calling us to speak when we don't think we have a voice. I remember, I think it was 2 years ago, I got laryngitis for the first time in my life, and I couldn't do the prayer call. And I texted them that I was sick, and when I came on the next week, I said, you know what, this is the first time I ever lost my voice, but maybe God is taking my old voice and going to give me a new one. Well, I found out some things. I think I have a new voice. You hear me talking? I got a new voice. Jesus. However, in order for us to hear God's requests, we have to hear him speaking. We have to be tuned into God and not to ourselves and how serving makes us feel. One morning, God woke me up and said, see God, because he's already looking at you. And that word was so powerful to me, I think I texted to several friends, see God. See God, because see, while you're sleeping, he's looking at you. When he wakes you up in the morning, he's looking at you. While you're relating to others, he's looking at you. The question is, what is he seeing while he's looking at you? Are we serving with joy and gladness? Are we keeping the confidence of those who come to us in despair? Are we eager and ready to do what we have been called to do? Are we team players, or are we on a solo mission? Are we having I can't do this moment, but then doing it anyway? I've had a couple of I can't do this moments, okay? I was like, Lord, you know what? I'm going to put you over here. I know who you are, but I can't do you right now. But you know, God knows his crazy children. He knows us. And he let me have my moment. And then on that Saturday, just before church, because I wasn't going back to church, I was tired. I said, I'm not going. He said, where are we going? I was like, okay, I'm gonna go. And he helped me sort it out to where he was taking me. Here is something I have learned. I'm sorry. When I think about the Israelites that Moses appointed to hear the complaints of the people, the capable men that were yet still human, I'm sure their moods varied in service. Some days they were up and ready for the call, and other times they were saying, Lord, not today, not today. I just can't take it today. I'm sure they were relieved at the times they could go to Moses and say, here, handle this one. This is not part of who God called me to be. You take this one. This is a big one. But what the word says is that they were available. They were available. Even though it may have been uncomfortable, they were available. Here is what I've learned about serving. Serving has nothing to do with how I feel. It has nothing to do with where I may have to go or who is there when I get there. It certainly has nothing to do with how comfortable I am, because I may be very uncomfortable. Service has everything to do with the fact that I have been called by God to do what he has for me to do, when and where he has called me to do it. And let me say this. Oh, the places you will go. If serving means evangelizing in the streets of the Bronx, then you go. If it means sitting in a police station for 2 hours but being as pleasant as possible while the popo look at you side-eye, then you sit. I thought I was going to have to call you, Pastor, to vouch for me. I did. I'm not kidding. I'm texting my sister-in-law saying, I'm going to jail. If it means speaking the words of God boldly to strangers, then you speak with God-given authority. Or caring for a sick family member when all you want is a sense of normalcy. You just want your life back. So you stay and you do what is needed. When I came to Union Baptist, God told me I would no longer be able to sit and hide. The day he kept telling me, tell the First Lady, pray about the women's ministry. I'm like, no. He said, tell her to pray about the women's ministry. So I got up and I went and I said, you know, we really need to pray. She said, okay, you do it. I was like, oh. But God was pushing me into service. He was pushing me. Another time the Spirit said, join the usher board. I was like, who? You mean me? You know that's not who I am. I don't talk like that anymore. I said, you know that's not who I am. But the second time the Spirit said, join the usher ministry, I just found Deacon Laverne. I was like, okay. And when I got there, guess what? She knew I was coming. Is that God? That's how he works. He makes all things work together. And so we just look at him in amazement of who he is. What I know for sure is I'm not the only one here that has heard the voice of God calling them into service. God has gifted all of us to do something for his kingdom, but it's not enough to be gifted. We need to allow ourselves to be used by God. 1 Corinthians 12, 7 through 11 says, now to each one the manifestation of the Spirit is given for the common good. To one there is given through the Spirit a message of wisdom, to another a message of knowledge by means of the same Spirit, to another faith by the Spirit, to another gifts of healing by one Spirit, to another miraculous powers, and to another prophecy, to another distinguishing between spirits, to another speaking in different kinds of tongues, and still to another the interpretation of tongues. All these are work of one and the same Spirit, and he distributes them to each one just as he determines. Ephesians 4:11 and 12 says, so Christ himself gave the apostles, the prophets, the evangelists, the pastors, and the teachers to equip his people for works of service so that the body of Christ may be built. We have been given a responsibility not to ourselves, but to our brothers and sisters within these walls, but also outside. And so the question is, will we heed the call, or will we remain complacent? For those who have become complacent in service, I encourage you to seek God for a new way of doing things. We cannot possibly be effective being complacent. If God has called you to serve, and you've been doing the same way these past 5, 10, 15, or more years, I challenge you to seek God, because the atmosphere in which you live and serve is consistently shifting. It's moving, y'all. And if we don't move with it, we're going to get left behind. What was is no longer. And what is, God requires more. Pastor says, there is more. And I remember I first heard that. I was sitting back here, and Pastor had been preaching. He's like, church, there is more. And the Spirit said, girl, if you want more, you better get up and join that church. And I jumped up, because, see, I knew what earthly more meant. But let me just tell you, there's a spiritual more, okay? And the spiritual more is, you know that saying, well, God won't give you more than you can bear, which is not in the Bible, but everybody says it. Yes, he will. Yes, he will. See, he'll use up your more, and then he'll pour some more into you. He will give you what you need when you think you can't do it anymore. When you think you've given your last. When you feel like you've hit your bottom. Then you fall to your knees and say, God, I can't do this. But he says, get up because you can. Because your strength comes from me and not from you. God is faithful. He's faithful. And he'll do a thing. He'll do it. I challenge us all to tune into God and to seek his more. I can almost guarantee you that what God has for you will change your understanding of what more really is. It will be the wildest ride you've ever been on. There will be ebbs and flows. There will be ins and outs. There'll be tears, but there'll be joy. There'll be pain and suffering. But the places you will go. Just listen to him. Just follow him. God said, trust me. It may not look like what you used to, but trust me. I got you. I'm telling you, it would be nice to get up here and tell you that God has worked it out. But I'm still waiting. I'm still trusting. I don't know what tomorrow's going to bring. I don't know what my life is going to look like. I lost my job a year and a half ago. I lost my place to live in the beginning of this year. I'm telling you right now, I don't know where I'm going to go. But I do know that I serve a God that says, trust me. I know my brother passed 10 days ago. I know I had to do his funeral this past week, but I also know that God called me to speak to you today, and so I trust him that he would give me a word. I know I'm still in pain. I know it still hurts. I miss my brother, but I know that God is with me. I know my family is with me. I know my friends are with me. And so I trust him. And that's all he wants us to do. We may think we're ill-equipped. We may think, how could he possibly use me? But trust me. Trust him. And he will use you. He will give you what you thought you never had. You will find a voice that you didn't know was within you. He'll give you strength and courage to speak to people you don't even know. You'll be on the streets telling the people about the Lord who saved you, the God that brought you out of the muck and the mire. And you'll place your feet on the solid rock of Jesus Christ. Union, I'm not the only one. He spoke to others just like he spoke to me. Hear the voice of the Lord. Humble your hearts and follow him. And oh, the places you will go.